and kind of like you kind of directing where you would like to go next. But one thing that I want to ask you when I look at this is, what do you think could be a powerful move from, well, I know you want to get more of their data in, but what do you imagine could be powerful moves coming out from the analysis of the data with the girls? Oh,
I don't know.
Do you want to try to think about ideas?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are certain things that, factoring with cube roots, I have to just do a couple of those with the girls so that they see and understand how the pattern works, because I know that that's not something that's really emphasized, and it might be helpful later on in math. I don't know how helpful it is in.
So you said to me earlier. So why don't we think a little bit about that, if you don't mind, because there might be interesting things coming out of this, right? And
right.
But when this reflection, rules of the games are, I might suggest ideas, I might pitch ideas, I might tell you what I would do if I were you, but in no ways that should become your next step.
Okay.
Right? But it's just sometimes to make the reflection richer, we have to also provide a perspective, right?
Right.
So what I heard you say is, one of what was interesting for you in doing so, there was the soccer to space race as a diagnostic review activity, beginning to see what we're struggling with, and not teaching from scratch, teaching from what this telling us. And that already had some impact in allowing you to not assign necessarily everything on the haiku page because of what you've done. Then they go through their assignments via haiku, and then you collecting some feedback from them. And one thing I heard you say is, I kind of wanted to test this out to see if I could teach this differently than have had in the past. All right. So why don't we unpack what that could mean? What does that differently mean to you? Does it mean, for example, that there could be moments in which not everybody needs to work on the same thing, or not everybody needs to work on the same level of things? What do you mean by, I wanted to see if this could lead to a different way to teach this? What do you imagine?
So I think, first of all, not reviewing everything frontally with the kids, although every kid does appreciate that because that's the way they're taught so often. It's clearly not necessary. If I had better data and I saw that, right now I have 5 out of 7 people saying factoring trinomial where A is greater than 1. That's obviously something that I'm going to need to do frontally. But I'm thinking maybe even just to have one more day of review with stations.
Yeah. And what would drive the stations?
I think the stations would be by types of factoring.
How do they make their decision?
Based on the feedback they gave me on this reflection.
Now, that might have changed from that time, right? Things might have happened since, and it still doesn't feel relevant.
Right.
But that data can help make that decision. Yeah. And there's something also that is interesting in your data. And like right now, we're doing some design thinking, so we might be going too far, right? When you're starting to go in a place of differentiating, this process, right? So we can differentiate based on the concept you need to review the most. But one could also say we could differentiate by learning styles or way I prefer to learn it. Well, some of your feedback survey gave you some of that. Some kids have indicated what was the most helpful way for them to review. So you could almost imagine a process or a station process or an individualized rotation process in which student could choose a concept or a few concepts they want to focus on, and on a second level of differentiation, a way or a path toward, right? Would you prefer to watch some videos and practice on the computer? That's one way. Would you actually rather engage in problems with a practice partner? Or actually, would you like to work in a small group with Ms. Drebin? This is just this is me adding a layer to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it could be a really interesting follow-up to your initial experimentation is to figure out if this could lead you to a space of differentiation, um, and see if that benefits them.
Okay.
Now, if this one feels big and not necessarily timely at the moment for multiple reasons, life and everything, it is, however, something we can save for a later experimentation if it feels more right. I would say if this one feels big, I would like to suggest also smaller steps that would be extremely valuable. And I would say the very first one will sound maybe silly, but is letting the girls know you looked at the data and what your analysis taught you. Because teachers often forget that kids don't get to see this happening in front of them often. A teacher being reflective and adjusting parts of their instruction from the analysis can be a very powerful move. As simple as, hey, I looked at your survey data, by the way, here it is. And one thing I noticed, struck me, 80% of you are saying the most difficult factorization is the one with age greater than 1. So I would like to do something about that because I want to help you prepare to the best of my ability. Therefore, and then, every teacher might have their response. Some might say, our do-nows are going to be for a week about these problems. And we'll get started with the class with it, and so we can get better at it. Others might say, I'm going to create a small group just on this, and, but at least there is that step of like, I've looked, I've learned, and here's an adjustment. And doesn't have to go all the way to necessarily the learning stations, right? But I think that holds interesting key toward more personalization of the learning experience for you, right? And I think that could be really interesting because I want you out of this experience to be as delighted as possible, which I think for somebody like you means not just doing things, but doing things that are going to make you feel a little stretch every time.
Right.
Not so much that it's going to make you feel like, I can do this, but enough that you're going to feel like I'm moving toward places that I don't think I would have gone in the first place by myself. So that could be one to imagine, okay?
Okay.
So in the final reflection around this Socrates space race experiment, a few things that we could say seem to be that with better data, which is something you said multiple times, with better, more accurate data, one route could be a station system of review.
Right.
With different concepts of choice aligned to their feedback or their data. And then one thing I mentioned was this idea of like showing them that I looked at the data and I'm ready to make some moves, even if they're small.
Okay.
From my experience with blended learning, when you start doing this, it changes kids' perception toward what they do online.
Okay.
All right. So we can keep it at that for now.
Okay.
Now, on your end, may I ask you to add this wonderful artifact that you just shared with me to your strategy? So in your playlist, I brought Socrative as a strategy. In the planning notes, I shared, pretty much put what you sent me by email. Okay. Like what role Socrative was playing into this, more of a diagnostic with space race to allow you to, so I described this whole thing. Then I tapped up your reflection. So I think some artifacts that could be really interesting in this strategy would be what you just shared with me via screen share. Mm-hmm. Could also be what you initially had in Socrative, the space race itself, like what were the questions, things of that nature. I think that would make for a really nice thing. I'm gonna save and exit, and I think it is sometimes the most challenging step of our work, but also the most exciting. Is like it's like where would you like to go next now? Now that we've had this first, and I don't want always you to feel like the pressure has to be that you respond in the moment. You've already done 3 strategies on your own in 5 coaching sessions. It's a really good pace. So if you were to say sometime, Roman, I actually would like to use the next cycle to think about what my next challenge will be or where I want to go before I can jump into
Right.
trying something else, that is fine. That's a state we can take.
Okay.
But you can also feel like at the end of today, I kind of like know where I want to go, and I want you to help me going there.
So I think I need a chance to think about it. I haven't really thought about what else can I do, where else can I go. There's something that I'm going to be starting with my Biblical Lit 10 honors. It's kind of like a jigsaw. So there's a unit that I'm teaching to the 10th grade. Part of it in the Hebrew text, these verses are bracketed with an inverse Hebrew letter. And the question is why, and why this letter. So I use it as an opportunity to answer all those questions, but then I step a little bit outside of the Biblical Lit class because it directly relates to one of the prayers that we say twice a day, or 3 times a day, actually. So I use it as an opportunity to expose the girls to different ideas in that prayer, but I don't teach it. I have all these sources Xeroxed, and I split the girls into groups. I basically almost just rip the sources apart. No rhyme or reason for the beginning or end of what packet your group gets, but each group gets a set of sheets, and they have an assignment where basically they have to choose X number of ideas from the sources that they have, put it together in some kind of fun way for the kids. I have something written up, and then they're going to get up and teach their section. So I don't do any teaching. The only thing that the kids have to ever know from these source packets is what their fellow students have actually said up there at the front of the classroom. I think I'm going to think about that a little bit to see if that's something that I might want to bring into our coaching or a strategy. And if not, then I need to think about something else. Yeah.
Yes. And here's what I propose.
Okay.
In my follow-up email, if you don't mind, I'll summarize the 2 big question or themes that seem to have come out of the last 2 cycles of implementation.
Okay.
One that came out of Verso app around classroom discussion,
Mm-hmm.
and the one that seemed to have come out of the try with Socrates Space Race and what happened afterwards, with this idea of like what to do next with that data and how could this help me differentiate and personalize. Me putting it there is just for us to have it and have it as, a very interesting path for the future.
Right.
But I would love for you to take the time to think about what you just said. And here's what I would tell you from my experience. When teachers already have a teaching ID plan and a project like this, as exciting as this one, sometimes the best move to make is to go with this because it doesn't require additional work from you. But to ask ourselves, what value could the personalized PD coaching bring to me in the process of doing something I've already kind of thought about doing?
Right.
So I wouldn't necessarily do this with everybody 2 minutes before the call, but with you, I would. What do you think doing this with me could allow you to do with this project that maybe last year you wouldn't have done?
I think we'll have. I think I can find a way to bring more meaning to the kids, where they hold on. They hold on to more of the information, because I tell the kids this is not something that I test. I'm not nitpicky on it. So I'll throw a question or 2 onto the test that it's very open-ended, which means whatever stuck with you from the girls' presentations, that's how you're going to answer the question. Because ultimately my goal is that those are the 2 or 3 ideas that as they say that prayer every day, that's what they should think about. So that's what I'm wondering if.
Yeah, so I think you're right on track. If I were in your shoes and I had somebody allowing me that space, I would want to use, if I want to use one of my existing projects that I'm excited about, the opportunity is exactly like you said. It's going to allow me to find the purpose and the meaning in what is it that I want to study through that experiment this time. Where is it that I want to try to find out the impact of my project, and maybe before I didn't, right? By simply placing a lens and an objective like this is what's going to generate improvement and learning, where maybe in the past there would have just been just an implementation of the project and finishing it. So what I would like to ask you to do is, as you're going to look at the other 2 teaching challenges that came out of our 2 last project, and at this project that you have in mind, try to identify what would be an interesting teaching challenge for you through this project. And if you can't find it in the language of what's on the site, find it in your own words. Like what is that thing that through this project you would be interested in studying and seeing if we can move the needle on via the use of this project. And once you're done with that, I think you probably will be able, next time we meet, to determine where you want to go. And then we'll have our next direction.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And then this way we can always guarantee that we're doing something that really is the most meaningful to you in this process, and we're not doing it for the process itself. I never want you to feel this way. Now, I just said that, but at the same time, I'm going to end by asking something that seems to be about the process. Could we use our next cycle, though, to have you give the student survey to
Yes.
you? And then we can, I'm going to activate the strategy in your place, because ultimately in December, once we get that data, I imagine a very interesting end of year activity around looking at it to also help us with second semester, some of your next big ideas. Okay.
Okay.
That sound okay? Do you want to look at our next time? I don't know if you and I ever had a conversation around locking a time in your or my schedule, but I've been doing this more and more lately with people, so I want to offer this to you if it's a good way for you to approach this. But I think at ULA you guys rotate.
We rotate. That's my only problem.
Yeah, that's
and I do sometimes teach at 7:45.
Yeah. So I would be interested, if it doesn't feel too rushed to you, because we kind of kept it a little more open today, and next time we could narrow it down. I'll be interested in trying to meet you before Thanksgiving break, if possible, to maintain momentum. But if it feels too rushed, we can also meet after.
No, that's fine.
So before Thanksgiving break is a week where I have availabilities. I have Monday pretty wide open, and I have Wednesday. And Wednesday pretty wide open too.
Okay, so let's do Monday.
Okay. What's a good time for you?
Do you have 10 o'clock?
Your time?
My time?
Yes. I have a 1 p.m. here.
Okay.
All right. So I'll put it there.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. I know it's a tough time right there for you right now. And I know I cannot do much to help with everything that's happening, but I want to tell you something this morning. There are very few moments in my job where I feel as at peace and happy doing this work than when I coach you.
Thank you.
And that has a lot to do with the quality of your questioning and the professionalism that you have with this process. And despite everything going on right now, you just said this morning, I still want to do this. I know it's good for me, even though right now I might have a million other things to do. And so I'm very appreciative for this work with you.
Thank you very much.
I'll see you on the 21st. I'll send you a follow-up email tomorrow. And then in between now and the 21st, you change your mind around the pace and you want to do things, continue doing exactly what you've done with me right now, is saying, Iman, I want to start this. Give me your feedback and I'll be faster this time than last time. Thank you so much.
I think also it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
When I got your bounce back,
yeah,
the initial reaction was like, what am I going to do? He's not going to be able to answer me. And then I was like, okay, you lived before him. You will live without him for 24 hours. Like all of a sudden you get that funny thing in your head. And then I realized that the act of typing it up and sending it to you, that in and of itself gave me a tremendous amount of clarity.
Yeah. And I wanted to tell you that I wanted to praise you for the way you responded to me afterwards, because I read what you said. I provided you an idea. And I said, I said we could meet and talk. And you was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go with the plan as it is. Thank you for your feedback. And then we'll debrief. And I was like, all right, there we go.
It was like such a funny thing. And, you think yourself, I'm not a new teacher. It's not like I've never done this before.
No.
but it was just really, it was like that initial reaction of what am I going to do? He's not here. And then I said, you know what? You wrote it out.
Yeah.
That gives you clarity. You're going to go with it. And then he'll tell you everything you did wrong afterwards.
Yeah, no problem. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, very
That was
good.
a lot of
Thank
fun.
you very much. Thank you for today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.